Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Red, White, and You Show with yours truly, the military medium. Today, I have a returning guest with me. If you were a fan or a follower of the Red, White, and You radio show back when we were with KRFF 95.9 FM, back in February, actually, episode 32 of the radio show, we had Brad Thomas and Tyson from the band Silence and Light that graced our guest list. And these guys are really cool. The whole band is just off the charts. And I want to read to you a little bit what Silence and Light, if you guys don't know, Silence and Light formed back in May of 2017 in New York City. Founding members Brad Thomas, Jason Everman, who was formerly of Nirvana and Soundgarden, wanted to draw from their musical past to create a mechanism to raise awareness about the myriad issues facing veterans on the global war on terror and contribute the proceeds from the music sales to the special operations charitable organizations. Tyson, who was playing bass, Branda on drums, Fred vocals, all joined the band over the course of the next year, and the band immediately started songwriting rehearsals. Silent Light is working hand in hand with legendary LA bass producer Josh Goodwin to record their debut album that released in the spring of 2019. Silence and Light is committed to contributing profits from music sales to numerous charitable organizations designed to help support the members and families of the special operations communities, as well as first responders. And one thing that you guys probably didn't know is that the band is made up of veterans, and which is cool, special operations and Air Force and everybody else, right? So it's just so cool that their heart is in it. But I want to introduce to welcome to the Red, White, and You Show, rather, Brad. Brad, welcome back.
All right, thanks for having me again.
You bet.
It was a blast. It was a blast the first time. So.
Right. Well, what's interesting is ever since I think you guys got in my blood, because ever since I can't find a guest now that isn't percolating, I'll say, or circulating within your circles. And you guys are everywhere, man. You guys are all the way out in North Carolina and visiting the great folks at Warriors Heart, and you guys are doing all kinds of projects and everything. So it's interesting that everywhere I kind of go to source, how do I want to say, maybe source some guests or people that come across my, news feed or whatever it is. You guys are involved in it at some level. And so kudos to you guys. You guys are busy. You guys are everywhere, man.
It's not even so much busy as it is, the special operations, first responder community, whether it's on social media, whether it's, in person, it's a very small community. And so what may sound like the size of a small town, but really, if you've been in for any length of time, names, people's faces, you've interacted in different schools, military organization, whatever it might be. And it's a very small group of people. So, people always ask me about like the posers, the guys that are out there, like stolen valor. And it's so easy to identify just because if you've been around for a while or any period of time at all, you kind of know what doesn't stand and what does. So
right.
Anyway, I think we've done a really good job of proliferating within the veteran and first responder community. I think we've done a really good job of that. And I think we're at the point now where we're trying to push outside of that, because that's really where, we'll be more successful, sell a lot more albums, et cetera.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, and it's interesting. You talk about that small knit community, and it was interesting because we were chatting before we came live here that just yesterday, which will be coming out, the episode will be coming out in June, but with, Mr. Larson, who did the documentary Black Hawk Down and the untold story about Task Force 214, and which is interesting. I'm talking to you today because I believe it was back during your Ranger Battalion days, wasn't it? That you did some time in Mogadishu and I believe it, in that operation and that whole deployment and it was interesting. And the other thing is that obviously tomorrow, who you're very well familiar with, and good friends with, is Mr. Tom Spooner,
Yeah.
who will be coming out in episode 4 now this Friday, of course, but which is interesting. So it's really cool that um, when I'm like, oh wow, Brad and those guys know. I go to source a guest, and it's like, oh, Silence and Light, yeah, there there's some PR photos or whatever, you guys hanging out or doing a gig with them or whatever in
Yeah.
support of them, and which is really cool to see. And it's like you said, those circles tend to be really small.
Yeah.
Yeah, but outside looking in, sometimes it looks like a large pocket or a large community, but yeah, it's kind of like a family, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. As an example, Tom and I go way back, known each other since probably the mid 2000s. And we weren't at the unit, if you're not in the same squadron, you're not on the same cycle, you're not seeing the same people in the hallways. So it's like maybe every 6 months you'll pass somebody and see him and get to hang out or maybe grab dinner or something like that. But you don't really get to see each other as much, even though
Right.
you're in the same building. I see Tom more now than I did when we served together. I've seen him many more times
Sure,
since
sure.
we both retired than I did when we were both serving in the same building. So
Very
great
cool.
dude. One of the things we've talked to Tom about is coming down and kind of do a full band thing, like basically come in with half of a song and let the folks that are there at Warrior's Heart kind of finish the song with us, give us the
Oh,
direction
cool.
and guidance, be able to give vocal, lyric input and things like that, and really make it their song, and then we'll record it and put it on our next album. That's
Oh,
one of the things
cool.
we've been talking about as a really cool opportunity.
That would be really cool. That'd be exciting to see that when that comes out, to just some powerful music. Talking about powerful music now, focusing on what you guys do, of course, the music, right? The music aspect. And you have so many great songs, and we talked about this before too, Brad, is that, and obviously the difference between radio and podcast. I'm not able to play tracks of your music, but the thing is that you guys have so many great songs, and I believe I asked this back in February, but your songs, do they have a deeper meaning to them? Do they have, like, when you guys served or seen things in combat or the beginning of war or what you perceived as war and then the end of it? Is there something that personified that in you guys' song?
It did. It was interesting because we originally went to the studio with like 12 songs, and generally artists, when they go to record, they'll record more than what they actually release.
Sure.
And same was true with us. So we actually went in with 12, whittled that down to 10. But of the 10 that we recorded and got on and could start mixing and listening to, two of them just didn't fit. And it was something that it took us the better part of a year just to figure out what our sound was. Like, what is our sound? What do we sound like? How do these songs fit together? And two of them just didn't sit right with the others, and we elected to get rid of them rather than put out and have two more songs that we felt like weren't good representation of us. So what we found of the 8 remaining songs that we did release was that they really kind of wove together, and it wasn't like it was a concept album, but it almost turned into that just in the way that the songs fit together. So you have everything from the young aggressive Ranger Tab Spec 4 that's chomping at the bit to go mix it up. That's kind of one part. You've got some of the solace and solitude of being deployed and loneliness and despair and all of those feelings that are wrapped up. You have that in some of the songs, and then you have Silence and Light, which is kind of the epic song on the album. But that's kind of talking about the aftermath and
Sure.
contemplation and all the things and damage that's caused by trauma, et cetera, et cetera. So it really fits together really well. And I think from that, now that we've got that as this is our baseline, very easy to write and record and come up with new stuff that fits within that mold. And so that's what we're doing now.
Very cool. So let me ask you, for those that haven't heard your music, they haven't yet, let me say that, they haven't yet listened to your music, and we'll post some clips on social media and everything when we publish this, like, so they can go and check out you guys's music. But if you had to summarize your music or genre of the band, what would that be?
It's we get asked that a lot, and it's interesting because I think we very much fit into a grunge kind of matrix, but there's a lot. Grunge is a whole lot, and I think,
Right.
if you look at what grunge, like, what does that really mean? And it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of the darker side of the Seattle music scene that was happening in the late 80s and early 90s. I don't think we sound dated. I don't think that our music sounds like something from 1991. I think it sounds very modern, and it's kind of a modern take on grunge. So we've got acoustic songs, we've got really heavy stuff. It all fits together in a Alice in Chainsy, Stone Temple Pilots kind of way. They've all got heavier and lighter, and I like that. I've always liked bands that have diversity in their music, and not every song sounds the same. It kind of started with Led Zeppelin, right? They have
Sure.
from great acoustic tunes to, some hammer heavier songs, and I've always liked that. So that's what we kind of tried to emulate.
Really have a wide range, playing a wide range to a lot of different people. And I guess, and I am not I guess, how do I want to say it? A music aficionado, right? Or a music snob by any means. And what I would share is that it had kind of, if I was to describe it personally, I would say, like you shared, that Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden little vibe, but then there's music that doesn't, and it's outside that range, and so it's interesting. And I remember the time, because I hadn't pre-listened to any. All I did was check the lyrics, right, when I played you guys, before I played you guys' music, and hey, is there any nasty words in there that I can't play on the radio? And I couldn't have been more pumped, because I was actually, when we would take breaks and we were playing the music, I was like, God, this stuff rocks, because it was just, kind of jamming out to the tunes in the DJ booth. And so I would share is, if anybody likes that type of music, go check it out, because I guess personally for me, there's something almost for everybody in that aspect. And
very much. That's that's just being smart about what you're doing. Like, we could write one of the heavier songs. I could write 50 songs that sound virtually identical, and all that does is give us one customer.
Right.
It only relates with one person that likes a specific type of music, not someone who's down for all kinds of stuff. So that was definitely by choice, but it's also, I guess, part of, like, we're all like that. We have different musical tastes, different musical backgrounds, different, people that we wanted to try and emulate over the years, or whatever it might be. And I think it just fits together really well. From the beginning, it's interesting because, when we started talking individually, collectively, once we got together and formed the band, one of the things that I always told the other guys was, like, the music doesn't have to be incredible. This is more about the message. It's more about saying, we're trying to do something positive and creative and healthy with some of this dark stuff that we've got. And if we take the proceeds of that and we give it to charitable organizations like Warriors Heart that do amazing things for first responders, veterans, that whole community, then it really doesn't matter. It's like, you can buy a song for 99 cents and know that the profits of which are going directly to, those great organizations, right? So it's a win-win.
Right.
And what's really kind of surprised me was that the songs have connected with people the way that they have. And it's actually really good music. It's not okay music. It's really good. And it's interesting to see. I get people every day on social media that hit me up, and they're like, "Hey man, I love this song. It speaks to me." it caused me to do X, Y, and Z and a good thing. And thank you for being there. That's been like the little hidden gem in this whole project
That's
has,
cool.
has been that, I never
Do,
expected that.
do you believe that it's all because of, like you talked about, Brad, like back, you guys, kind of, if you will, the mission statement of, the beginning of when the band started, and, getting really clear on you guys' intent, like what is your intent as far as, yeah, let's kick out some kick-ass music, but let's really focus, let's keep the main thing the main thing. And it's really helping, these veteran organizations. And you talked a little bit. Do you believe that that is kind of why it carries a certain vibe
Well,
to it?
I think it connects with people because it's real, and I don't put out fake stuff. I speak from the heart and I say things that are real, and I tend to keep it, that's just me.
Right.
So I think that you could try and fake a lot of stuff, and I think people see through that.
Right.
I don't want to put myself out there as a former Delta Force guy, and that's all I am. Like that's a part of who I am now. That doesn't define who I am today. That it's
Right.
helped mold me into the person that I am today. I don't want to sit around and talk about, oh, remember back in '03 and '08 and in '99 or in 2000, whatever. I don't want to do that. I want to talk about what I'm doing today and now, and that's what I'm excited about and passionate about. And
Cool.
so I think that there's a twofold thing there. One
Yeah.
is it's altruistic. The intentions are real, and you're getting a very non-fake thing. Like this is a real thing.
That's very cool. So let me backtrack a little bit. And we talked about, Jason Everman, of course, big part of the band, everybody's a big part of the band, but a big, kind of, he was thrust into the spotlight, of course, with Nirvana and Soundgarden. And, how did you get aligned with him, and how did the band all come about?
Well, Jason and I have been friends for, I guess, the better part of 10 years, maybe
Okay.
10 years. We both served in the Ranger Regiment at the same time, although in two different
Sure,
battalions on
sure.
either coast. But I joined in people that knew me, and you have peers that go to Ranger school with guys from other battalions, and so it's kind of a very small community, and people from the Ranger Indoctrination program that you went through basic training and airborne school with, who ended up in another battalion, and you see these guys later in NCO professional development schools and things like that. So anyway, people knew that I played music prior to joining the service. And as soon as Jason hit the streets in 2nd Ranger Battalion up in Seattle, I knew about him right away, just because word of mouth. Hey, you'll never
Sure.
believe there's a guy that was in Nirvana and Soundgarden, and he's in the Rangers. And at first, it was like, oh yeah, BS. There's no way. But ended up being a real thing. So he and I never got the chance to connect, and I think I'd already moved on to Delta, and he just, I think, maybe 2006 timeframe, much later, went to Special Forces, or somewhere along. I don't know his whole
Sure.
timeline exactly, but we didn't really cross paths until 2010, and kind of instantly hit it off. We had a lot of commonality in music prior to the service, even though I was never in Soundgarden or Nirvana. But was
Sure.
trying to do the same thing, and we
Yeah.
kind of grew up very similar in that way. So we've always clicked. And anyway, I approached him a few years ago about, hey, I want to do this thing. I've got an idea for how we can get back to the community. Are you down for this? Because I know you've been out of music for a long time. I don't know if you want to relive that. I don't know if you want to stay very private, what you want to do. If you're down for it, there's nobody else I can think of that I would want to do music with than you. And it kind of started from there. So I stood up a social media page, and then people started coming. That was where Tyson came on board, and he said, hey, I don't know if you need anybody to play bass, but here's where I come from, and I would love to be a part of this in some way, shape, or form. And it kind of just grew organically, exactly like that.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Well, and it was interesting that I think we were talking last time that the dynamic of the band itself. It's just not, I think you talked about when you guys come together, it's not all BS. You guys get down to business, but then there's a lot of lighter moments too. I think you were, if I remember right, you were. Is it Fred? Is it the one that served in the Air Force?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
The
yeah,
brunt of all Air
yeah,
Force
the
jokes.
brunt of all the jokes. And would you mind sharing with maybe some of the
Sure.
lighter moments, kind of a lighter side of the band that, some of the funnier moments that you guys remember?
Yeah, for sure. So, again, it's like the four of us, me, Jason, Tyson, and Brandon, all served in a service. Not that the Air Force is not a service. We love and respect the guys that are flying around up there dropping bombs on people and everything else. Fred has never tried to try and say, hey, look at me, I serve in this capacity too. He's very gracious in that regard. So, he's the brunt of all jokes, and it's
Sure.
anything from, I think I posted some videos of Fred's shaving kit, which was this giant, horrible blue Air Force camouflage shaving kit. Because Fred and I always room together whenever we travel or do stuff. I don't know why, but we're always in the same room together. And I'll video his clothes. He lays them out on his bed, dress right dress, like a good soldier or a good airman. And so I'll take videos of that stuff and I'll send it to the other guys, and we just have a good time with it. We did some lyrics, some kind of one-off lyrics where we were poking fun at the Air Force, but it's out of love. It's
Sure.
obviously not serious, but
Well, and we get that too, right? Anybody that's really served, we know that all day and all night we're going to poke fun back and forth at each other. But when push comes to shove, when we get down to business, um, you know, it's it, you know,
well, it's a whole team, right? And
yeah,
I've
team
always
concept.
I've always been very gracious of the folks that I serve with in a
Yep.
support capacity, right? Because if it weren't for the cook that got you, the meal, that got this guy that fed the Intel guy that feeds the Intel machine, that it's all very much that way. And
Right.
it's the same thing. Interestingly, it's the exact same thing in the music industry, right? So we're the
Right.
we're the people that are out front. We're the people that people see, the face of the band, etc. But
Yep.
there's a whole crew of people behind the scenes, and we're working with like tier one level music industry people on everything from engineer to producer. I mean, this is as A-list producer as you can get. That's our producer, and he's a veteran also. So
Nice.
amazing people. Guy Chris Garinger at Sterling Sound did all our mastering, and if you were to look at Chris Geringer's like resume on all the music that he's mastered over the years, it's incredible. Like, I can't even believe that we're a part of that. It's amazing.
That's so awesome. It's
Yeah.
so awesome. Well, and you guys are part of this new project, Pray They Stand Down, the movie, right? So this new movie project. Chat a little bit about that. What's going on with that?
It's really kind of neat. And one of the things that social media does that never could have happened back in, when I was trying to break into the music scene in the 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, until I joined in 90. You couldn't do any of this. It was all like you had to get out there. You had to play all
Right.
over the country just to get your name out there. And even that was a chore to try and find places that would even let you in. Anyway, with social media, like, you can pretty much connect to whomever. So
Right.
I get hit up easily every day by somebody that's saying, I'm doing a project for this. I'm putting together a video for, happened today earlier with a buddy of mine who does artwork, and he like illustrates these really cool art pieces that are very combat oriented. And I gave him a file that he could use for music behind it. So, that's really cool. The Pray We Stand Down, Damian Costello, the guy that was putting it together, he reached out and said, I love your music and would love to be able to use it. Would you be willing to, let us have some so that we can put it in a trailer and get it out there, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's a bunch of stuff like that out there cooking.
It's very cool. When I went out there this morning, I was like, "What's this new project?" And of course, I had to listen to it, and of course, I believe the track, is it Look After Me?
Yeah.
Is that the song? So
Yeah.
yeah, very powerful song. If you guys haven't checked it out, head over to Silence and Light's website to do so. So back in February, when you guys were last on the radio, actually in that fall of uh, 2019, you guys had just kicked out two new singles, if I remember correctly. What and there's been a few months in between then and now. What new projects have you guys been working on, or anything new in the hopper?
So very end of December, we released the full album. So it's out. It's available anywhere and everywhere you would normally get music: Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon Music on Demand, Google Play. I think like 50 something different music platforms. You can get CDs on Amazon, so they're there. So it's pretty much out everywhere, and we've been tracking it. Kind of what's cool was we were verified by both Apple Music and Spotify, so we get to see like the demographics of where our music is selling, and that's been really interesting. There's stuff all over the world,
Wow.
which is pretty cool to see that
Right.
you can get it out everywhere. But
Right.
obviously, we've got our strong points of near military bases and things like that. But really, it's New York, it's Atlanta, it's Raleigh, Seattle, LA, Italy, Germany. It's pretty
Okay.
cool to see that whole thing. So,
Very
uh,
cool.
and then we're writing and basically have album 2 completed as far as the writing, and are looking to go in November and record that. We had some shows lined up prior to the whole COVID shutdown,
Sure.
so we didn't get to do some of that stuff. But that's kind of what we were trying to do over the spring and summer, was just play out and get on some bills. And I think we still have something that's lined up in November in DC, and people can check us out for more information there. But that's the only thing that hasn't been canceled. Everything else, of course,
Speaking of the COVID-19 thing, I saw a video, a compilation, if you will, and I'm trying to think who did it. Can't remember. Anyways, it was more of, I don't want to say it was a public service announcement, but it was talking more to people dealing with, if they're dealing with isolation and under quarantine and having a hard time, or whatever the case is. And I believe you were one of the faces on there, as
okay.
well as
Yeah.
Max Martini and a bunch of other folks, and just kind of sharing it, kind of like a public service announcement in a sense, right?
Yeah, it was really more of like a public thank you.
Sure.
And my buddy Tom Satterley, he runs All Secure Foundation.
There you go.
Tom was actually my troop sergeant when I first got to C Squadron in Delta Force. He was on another team in my troop, so we knew each other, and I did a
Okay.
couple of trips with his team, and we got to know each other and liked each other and hung out
Sure.
personally and things like that. But he was my troop sergeant major for 2 different deployments overseas,
And
and we've been very close since probably 1999.
wow.
But anyway, he asked me to reach out to some of my well-known friends to see if
Yeah.
I could get them involved and help them be a part of it and promote it. And so I got Jack Osborne, who's a buddy, and
Yeah.
Mac Martini, who's a buddy,
Yep.
and reached out to a couple of others that weren't able to, just because they had their own thing already going on and didn't want to cloud any waters. But anyway,
Right.
I was super honored to be a part of that, and thought that it came out, the finished product was, although it's a little long,
Right.
I think it was really good.
And it was
the
actually,
message
is his wife Jen? Is that
Yeah.
his? So she actually did the editing, I believe, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah, very cool, very nice product, and was a very powerful message. I mean, beautifully done. And so it's really cool, the different levels of where you guys are plugging in, and just some of the cool opportunities that you guys get to give back. And yeah, it was really cool to see, like you shared, Jack Osborne and Max Martini, and some very well-known individuals on that video. So it was really kind of cool.
Yeah, I look at
Go ahead.
that. I look at anything that I do is kind of. I don't care if I'm talking to one person.
Right.
That's one other person that I can connect with, and maybe will help at some point in time.
Right.
It's not about making myself or making it about me.
Right.
It's more that, hey, I'm trying to set an example that's positive, healthy, creative,
Yep.
and show people that, hey, I know I've been there too. I've lived the dark
Right.
days, and if I can do it and figure out a way to give back to the community, you can do it too. And I want people to see that, and
That
if it
was
helps
beautiful.
people,
Yep.
that's what it's all about.
And I think that message came through loud and clear on that as well. So it was just a very powerful video. So it was really cool to see that. We talked about Warrior's Heart on you guys' website. One that we're I'd be remiss if we don't talk about it. Marine Raider Foundation as well. And of course, there's so many. Where do you stop? But is another one that you guys specifically focus on as well. Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and they're basically, when this whole project started, the idea and concept was that each band member would pick a charitable organization to contribute to. So,
Sure,
like, your portion of royalties can go to whatever.
sure.
The talking points. Why it's near and dear to you.
Yep.
If you're doing an interview or whatever, you can be able to talk about it and know the correct information.
Sure.
So mine was Warrior's Heart, and that's what I've always kind of talked about. Tyson's was Marine Raider Foundation. That was near and dear to him
Yep.
because
Got it.
it's been able to help his former teammates and people, family members of guys that have been lost, and it gives direct like compensation to help cover travel costs, in a time of crisis or when things are at their worst. So those are the two, and really what it came down to is we wanted there to be five, but I can't talk about all five.
Right.
And we thought that it would kind of water down the whole thing. So let's just pick these two. And since Tyson and I do most of the media and everything
Yep.
else, then that's kind of what we've stuck with.
Okay. Nice. Nice. And I know that list doesn't end there. I know that's just what's on the website, but you guys are involved in so many others. I kind of keep tabs as well in a sense, and I see, like I said, I see you guys' faces pop up pretty much everywhere. And as I dig more into, you talk about that circle, right? Um, you know, more and more folks is where saying, "Up, yep, they're where you guys were either in North Carolina or wherever the case is." And so yeah,
I
so
have I have a buddy of mine. He and I served together in the Rangers, and then we were both on a special mission team within the Rangers called, back then it was called RRD, the Ranger Regimental Reconnaissance Detachment. And so he and I served there together, and he had a son who's now currently serving in the Rangers. So me and this guy served forever together. I think we were both in B Company in '91, and he went on to RD, and then I came years later, and then I went to Bragg, and he came years later as a support guy, but nonetheless he was there. And so we've known each other literally since 1991. Anyway, his son sent me a video from the Ranger gym down at Fort Benning, and our music was playing, blaring in the Ranger gym, and I was like, man, that is awesome. Like,
wow,
just that, dudes like it, and they're pumping iron to our music and stuff like that. Man, I couldn't be more proud. I don't care about a gold record.
right,
There's a Black Sabbath one that's signed that somebody gave me, but I could care less about that or being on Billboard charts or anything else. If it connects with the guys that are out there doing it, or first responders, or the people in the medical community that are doing such an amazing job now, like, that's all I care about. That's
right.
fine.
Very cool. That's very cool. So coming up in the next with the fingers crossed and knocking on wood and with the lucky rabbit's foot that everything get back to normal. What's next in the hopper for you guys? What do you guys I know you said you had some concert dates or gig dates lined up, but what do you guys got lined up next?
Really, all we can do right now until we know the extent of what, you know, the next schedule looks like for America, let alone, you know, I live in New York, so we're locked down, I think,
Sure.
through May 15th or something along those lines. But until we can figure out what's going on, I don't think there are going to be any concerts anytime soon for anybody in the music industry.
Sure,
I
sure.
just, you know, came at a bad time. So as soon as we can get some stuff on the schedule, like I said, I know we've got some stuff in November that we're trying to do. We've got some stuff next year that was scheduled for this year, but got pushed basically same exact dates, but it'll be 2021, not 2020. You know, that's just the unfortunate side of it. So all we can really do is focus on writing and getting that rehearsed. You know, once we have some travel ease, we'll get together and keep rehearsing stuff. But I think we're at like 10 of 12 songs complete right now in terms of writing and knowing all the different pieces and parts and everything else. So that's our focus, and then get that recorded and hopefully in later in November, early December. And then that'll release, you know, probably 2 or 3 months after.
Very cool. Okay. Well, before we let you go, Brad, couple things I wanted to ask you. You know, first one being, you know, in the music industry, who is somebody that has inspired you as an artist?
I guess, you know, there are different forms of inspiration, right? There are
Right.
different
Yep.
things that I think when you're a kid and you first start playing, it's more about emulation than inspiration. You know, you've got a guy that you like as a guitar player. You know, for me, it was Eddie Van Halen and Tony Iommi and the guys from Judas Priest, and you know,
Right.
that was kind of what initially inspired, but it was more about emulating. And over the years, you know, it was something that, I don't know, it takes a while for you to find your sound. Like, what's the difference between me playing an Alice in Chains song on
Right.
my guitar and playing a song of my own, you know? And I think there were a few things that I always looked up to, and it was that guys like Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin or Eddie Van Halen, as a 21, 22-year-old kid, were owning stadiums full of people, you know, owning it at that age. That kind of presence, that ability, they had their sound, they figured all that out, you know, and I'm double that age and am just figuring it out now. So if I was to say that it would be, you know, there isn't one person that I would say is, you know, the person that inspired me the most. It was just looking at some of those guys and what they were able to do, and not even really fandom or, you know, the teeny bopper girls, you know, excited about seeing the person, you know, but just
Sure.
being able to go into a stadium at 21 or 22 years of age, a stadium, you know,
Right.
all across the country, and just own it. And I think that's a pretty cool thing. So, you know, that's got power in itself.
Right. And my last one is, since you are you know, uh very you know, what am I trying to say? You know, since you do play guitar, I got a question for you. So I am a guitar playing wannabe, right?
Okay?
And so during
Me
this
too.
whole right. So during this whole quarantine thing, I got myself a guitar and thought, well, you know, we got time. Let's learn guitar. So what would be, and so not even myself, but anybody else that is aspiring to learn guitar or any other instrument, what would be your piece of advice to them?
Well, in my mind, there are two kinds of players.
Okay.
And there's actually a third that's a total sidebar, but there's the virtuoso, and that's the guy that can just play anything and everything. The guitar is still very much a puzzle to me. I mean, I know that, okay, that's third fret, fifth fret, seventh fret, ninth fret, 12th fret, and then things double beyond that, right? So it's like you're kind of repeating the fretboard. I still don't know where to go. I know what sounds good to me, but I don't know where to go. I don't study scales and modes and things like that. So you've got basically two different kinds of players. You've got the virtuoso that can just play anything, and they're very technically savvy. I'll use a guy like Steve Vai as an example, right? Steve Vai, an amazing guitar, one of the best guitar players ever. Name me a song that Steve Vai has written. Right.
Yeah.
Like, they don't write songs. They're not playing from the heart. They may be playing something from their heart, but it doesn't come across the same way. So that's one style of person. The other is a guy like Joe Perry or Eddie Van Halen. Well, Eddie's like a separate thing, but we'll take Joe Perry or Tony Iommi from Black Sabbath. Those dudes play like, they're not technical virtuosos, but they write songs that are hard hitting. The guys from Stone Temple Pilots, that would be another one. Jerry Cantrell, very much the same way. He's no pyrotechnic, lighting up the fretboard with his blazing solos, or David Gilmour, right? But they write songs that you feel. And so from the very beginning, I decided I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to be the David Gilmour, Jerry Cantrell kind of guy, not the virtuoso. So I didn't sit in my bedroom playing scales, trying to become as fast as I possibly could be, And then the third kind of guy, I think that there are only 2 or 3 guys that fall in that category. And that's like Eddie Van Halen and Jimi Hendrix. And those dudes, it's like the guitar is so much a part of their body that it's like, for them, it's like touching their hand. They know what to play, where to go. It's so second nature that what they hear, it just pours out in their hands and they can make it happen. And that's a completely different animal. So, people ask me about like Eddie. Why do you like Eddie? Because he could write songs. He wrote a ton of #1 hits, tons of great songs. All those riffs, and he can just blaze, and he knows where to go. I think the solo that he did for Michael Jackson, Beat It, he rolled into the studio. Quincy Jones called and said, "Hey, we want you to lay a guitar track." For a 6-pack of Schlitz malt liquor bull, he rolled into the studio with his guitar, laid down 2 tracks, 2 takes, and left. And one of them got used on Beat It. But the dude just knows what to do. And I could never be like that. So it's still a puzzle to me. And I don't think that it'll ever be solved, because I'm not one of those guys.
Very cool. So what would you
find your own voice?
Find your voice.
2 chords. You can write a great song out of 2 chords. That's it. And sometimes the simplest thing is the best thing, not loading it up full of more stuff.
Nice. So kind of the KISS principle comes back to greet us again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
You can add, that's where Look After Me started, right? This was a song that was originally, it was written electric, and it was kind of an acoustic electric-y song that built and then got heavy. And producer said, "Yo, go in there, jump on the acoustic, and let's lay a couple tracks and see how it sounds." And by making it that song is like 2 chords. And then a little bit later in the song, it maybe jumps to like 3 or 4 chords. But we could layer so many things on top of that to make it a full song. Like, that's what makes it amazing. It's not that it was such an amazing guitar part that I wrote. The guitar part was, mediocre at best, but we were able to do stuff on top of it that really built it out and made it be all that it could be.
Nice.
Cool process. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Brad, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule today to chat with us and just come back on the show and talk about what's going on with the band and everybody else. But we wish you nothing but good things, and we look forward to keeping tabs with what's going on with the band. I was looking at you guys' merch too. I was like, geez, I as a new I'll call myself a newbie guitarist. I was like, God, I think I might have to go out there and get myself a guitar pick and figure out some.
Those were I get my guitar picks. It's a little secret, but Intune GP, if you Google that, you'll find their webpage. You can get hundreds of guitar picks for like $6, $12, and then you can add your own artwork. You can pick the style of pick and everything else. And those were actually picks that I bought for me, and
Sure.
They didn't work out. I didn't like the texture of them, so I gave them to Tyson to load up on the merch store. But that's
Sure.
actually where those came from.
But
So
see, if I buy them from that company, a portion of that does not go towards those nonprofits.
sure, very, very
So,
true.
so I just want
And
to.
we've actually got a really cool. I think by the time this launches, it'll be out. But we've got a co-branded T-shirt with Softly,
Okay.
and it's. I've seen a couple pictures where one of the owners, one of the main guys at Softly posted where he's wearing one of them. They're not released yet because we're doing a giveaway. We have a really cool, unique handmade item that was made at Warriors Heart, and it's got the same logo that we're doing with Softly on the shirt onto this flag. And anyway, we're gonna kind of raffle that off based on you buy a T-shirt, you follow us, you've downloaded the music, and then best caption, best
Sure.
T-shirt photo, whatever wins, and you get this thing. But anyway,
Cool.
that's coming up and should be pretty cool.
That should be cool. And I got to share, since I am wearing my old radio show days shirt. I still owe you and Tyson a shirt, man.
We
I
owe
haven't.
you one as well.
That's all right. But we're not. I'm not going anywhere. So maybe perhaps it's because we need to get I need to get my own merch together for the podcast, something a little bit unique. So, but we look forward to, regardless, shirt or no shirt, we look forward to keeping tabs and seeing what you guys are doing. And it's an honor for sure to be able to chat with you guys. We know you guys are busy, but and I'd be remiss to say if I didn't say again, thank you for your service, but keep on doing what you guys are doing. You guys are making a difference out there and you're killing it. I love it. And you guys are making a difference.
Thanks, appreciated. And likewise, you're doing a great service and giving a platform for guys like me to be able to get out and get our message out. So one doesn't go without the other, and appreciate all you've done and had us on and everything else. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Anytime, brother. And we look forward to having you on again.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.